everybody. While we're waiting to go to the top 8, I'm actually joined by our second place finisher at today's event, Yana. It's so nice to meet you. You were just telling me this is your first TCG. This is your first tournament. How is it feeling right now to be the second place finisher?
It's really unexpected. I came in today with the idea to have some fun and to kind of get some reps in on how to play, and kind of having a good run was really surprising.
So I think what you're doing is really, really inspiring, especially to a lot of women in the Lorcana space. You know, we saw you in the first round and you lost, and you worked your way all the way up to the second spot. How did you not get in your head? How did you keep pushing forward? What has kind of been your strategy today?
I think mainly coming in with the idea to have fun and to just try and understand the mechanics of my deck a lot more kind of allowed me to not get too hyper focused in that first game, because it was pretty devastating getting hit with 3P prepared back to back. But yeah, it was just kind of take one game at a time, take one opponent at a time, and just try and perfect how I'm playing my deck.
That's amazing. So have you been playing this deck for a long time? I know you've been playing since set 3. So what is it got? How did you get to this point?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm not very good at deck building. I feel very confronted with how many different card mechanics there were. So I decided to pick one sort of deck that I thought I'd like the play style of, and I played that in set 3 as well. And then I kind of was looking at what other people were playing for set 4 and just kind of adjusted and developed my deck. So I'm kind of a one trick pony, but I'm getting better at being a tricky pony for that.
You know, we hear a lot though that you rather than changing decks all the time and trying to take like the hot new deck to a tournament to just play a deck that you love and you know really well. And so it sounds like that has worked out really well for you today.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. As you know, the game has so many mechanics and the way different cards interact with each other that working out how one deck particularly plays has kind of just been my strategy and how I've gone about it.
Well, it looks like we're getting set up for the next round, so I will let you get to your table. But it's been so wonderful to meet you, and best of luck.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, y'all.
We are off. We are live, and we are here bringing you the top 8 of a 1K tournament here in Austin, Texas, at Game Kastle Austin. I'm Liam with the Illumiteers. I'm here with my wife, Erin, and we're bringing you the stream with the help, or actually, the 20 Pro team is bringing you the stream, and we're just here commentating. We're heading into the top 8 here. Before we start, I've special guest here making his commentating debut. I'm here with Aaron Rubin, aka Lorcana Bro. Aaron, how are you?
I'm doing great, Liam. Yeah, first time in the booth, so excited to try it out and see how it goes.
It's going to be fantastic. I mean, it's really, if you're watching, I'm sure you know the name Aaron Rubin. If you don't, if you're the one or two people out there who don't, Aaron is a fantastic Lorcana player, a TCG player, former Magic Pro player. You give him all your creds, your embarrassing background. And then also a really accomplished Lorcana player, finished in the top 16 at Atlanta, barely missing out on a Golden Mickey, but qualifying for Continentals.
Yep, that
which
was
is
really exciting.
so great. So Aaron's a name that you'll see there, and also did well in Chicago. I'm so
Yep,
glad to be here with you
yep,
talking. Pick your
yeah,
Lorcana brain.
awesome. Yep, top 64 in Chicago as well. So back-to-back top cuts, which is really exciting. It looks like we've got here Emerald Steel, Blue playing Emerald Steel, and he's got the classic start with turn 2 Blucky. It looks like I think I see a Diablo in hand, but maybe not the song, the
We have
action.
we have a Sudden Chill and a Diablo, I think.
Oh,
Yeah. So yeah, that's a Diablo available there. Choosing not to shift
yeah,
it on
electing
turn
not
2.
to.
So we'll see it on turn 3. Yeah, the way I describe this, Aaron, is Emerald Steel is often trying to play this sub game, I call it, or actually, I think you kind of described it to me this way: this sub game of trying to get your opponent into top deck mode as soon as possible. And one Bucky helps you do that. Two Buckies really helps you do that.
Well, that I did not see in Blue's hand, and that makes a lot of sense why he elected not to shift the Diablo on turn 2. Doing it now and taxing the opponent's hand for 2 cards is a very powerful play, while simultaneously creating a draw engine for Blue to start drawing cards on whenever his opponent does so.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the things we saw with this Emerald Steel deck, not this particular one, but in a previous matchup, Emerald Steel against Ruby Amethyst is kind of Ruby Amethyst's out against this deck is to get to turn 7 and be able to play that Be Prepared. And it just seems like kind of an uphill battle when you're forced to discard 1 and 2 cards every turn to build up that ink reserve you need in order to get off that board wipe.
It's very tough, especially against the double Bucky draw. The only saving grace here is that blue has no cards left in his hand except for the draw step that he just took with the Diablo. So perhaps the aggression towards the Ruby Amethyst player's hand, can be suppressed a bit.
No, that's a great point. And luckily, Hisyn able to clear out that Diablo. And oh goodness, and it probably top decking into another Diablo there.
He's back.
And Diablo, I mean, just a crucial card. Not only is it getting rid of 2 cards from Hisyn's hand, but setting up that additional draw if it sticks around, so that blue can recharge his now empty hand, I think.
Yeah, so both players are playing off the top deck now. I believe the Hisyn is also empty-handed, except for the card that he's drawn for the turn. Looks like only 3, maybe 4 ink in the inkwell. It's hard to see. So it's going to be really tough for him to access his more expensive, really powerful spells in the matchup.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Luckily, the Broom here with another character can draw him a card. We'll see if we activate it here. We do, sending that away to draw another card. And not a terrible card to draw, although it's going straight into the inkwell there. Choosing not to perhaps have it discarded to Bucky.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we do need more ink, so it feels good to get that, but certainly feels bad to send friends from the other side into the inkwell when you're top decking.
Definitely would have preferred to draw that right here instead. It's going to be really interesting to see how Hisyn navigates it from here. If he's going to continue to add to his inkwell, which he does, or he could have also replayed the Flynn Rider back to the board, but he's electing to continue to build up ink and build towards the more expensive cards in his deck.
Yeah, no, with 5 cards or 5 ink in the inkwell, if you can survive for a few more turns here and perhaps top deck into the Be Prepared, perhaps you can stabilize. And this is exactly the card he wants to draw. Drawing into the rabbit in the mid game here, enabling to draw a card representing another card draw when it leaves play, and then able not only to get the rabbit in play, but then draw a card which can then ink, and now he's at 6 ink. So within striking distance of that Be Prepared with 1 more
Yes.
ink and then drawing it.
The scary side of that, though, is that the Diablo was also drawing cards for blue while the rabbit was drawing cards for Hisyn. So, it looks like blue's got a pretty stocked hand of about 4 cards. So even if Be Prepared comes back, he's potentially ready for a follow-up.
Yeah, and I can't see. That might be 3 Aladdin's there. I don't know, but definitely several Floodborn there. And so any card Hisyn manages to keep in his hand is going to be immediately discarded to that plethora of Floodborn.
Yes.
And blue drawing perhaps one of the cards he wants to see at this point. There's a Flynn Rider there, which will have 4 lore with Hisyn's empty hand, and this is a card that enables blue to finally start racing towards victory rather than just playing the discard game.
Yeah, an interesting thing about Emerald Steel is, as you can see, blue's been able to contain Hisyn's hand for the entirety of the game, but despite that, he's only at, I think, 6 lore now. So this deck does not have a ton of questing power in terms of all of its characters. They mostly lore for 1, and there's certain characters like Bucky that you don't even want to exert for questing, as it's a 1/1. So Hisyn does still have time to get back into this game and chain off some very powerful removal spells to stabilize.
Yeah, definitely an uphill battle, though. Removing the Diablo certainly helps, allowing you to access your card draw without allowing blue to draw into even more cards. And there's the Be Prepared.
And there it is. That's step 1 complete.
Right. Oh, but blue drawing into a Beast Tragic Hero, which is, again, the card that he probably wanted there.
Really powerful card for sure. That's going to, keep the card draw flowing. And now blue can, really conservatively present his threats towards Hisyn and not overextend into any Be Prepared or sweepers, and just slowly close out this game.
Yeah, I do think, there probably was an out there for Hisyn, a window if he top deck perfectly, draw into Mana Medusas and other spot removal cards that will allow him to build a board while removing his opponent's threats. But without being able to do that, Blue's going to be able to rebuild pretty quickly here. And as you pointed out earlier, just a grip full of cards there, able to keep things keep him moving towards his endgame.
Yeah, for sure. Medusa or Lady Tremaine, definitely the cards that Hisyn would be looking for at this phase. And even then, he would need to continue just drawing, more of those cards or, bounce effects to replay them to force Blue to commit more to the board and then potentially get him with a Be Prepared. Um, Without that, Blue can just kind of safely sit back on his 2 to 3 characters, maintain his grip full of cards, and continue to just work his way up to 20 at a very nice leisurely pace.
It's a 2 or 3 lore turn, and that's what we're seeing here. So, yeah, this is just a tough mountain to climb for Hisyn here. And really, I think Hisyn didn't have an awful opening with it certainly didn't get the aggro opening that I think a lot of decks are looking for these days with the Frenemy and the Sisu and all that. But really, what you're seeing is the Emerald Steel deck just on its perfect draw, with not only one Bucky but 2 Buckies, and just able to crush Hisyn's hand very, very early.
It was 2 Buckies and 2 Diablos. So just 2 of, arguably the most powerful cards in Blue's deck. And he saw 2 of each, and those cards are just very capable of taking over the entire game, and that's what we saw, kind of textbook gameplay from the Emerald Steel side right there.
Yeah, one of the reasons I think, because we look at this combo a lot, this Bucky Diablo combo, and people have talked about it at length from various angles. Some people love it. Some people, I think more people don't like it. To me, one of the things that makes it so powerful is not only are you able to activate um, Bucky early with that really, really early shift, but this line of play where you're shifting characters and where you're putting low cost characters on the board early with the turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 play forces you to empty your hand oftentimes. And so, as we saw, as you pointed out, the Emerald Steel player here forced almost into top deck mode himself by setting up this combo. But what Diablo does is it takes care of that weakness. It gives you card draw to compensate for the cost of flooding the board with that discard engine. And so to me, that's one of the things that makes this so oppressive. If Diablo was like low cost Diablo without compensating for the weakness of that combo, it wouldn't feel as bad, I think.
Right, and I think, one thing that, you know, has always been managed very well is that, Floodborns, obviously there are some very powerful Floodborns, but, you know, Diablo is just insanely powerful and can come down on turn 3, without even shifting. Whereas to me, it's kind of like you've got to manage the quality of the shift cards in order to, curtail Bucky just becoming even more powerful, right? As more cards enter the card pool through more sets, there's going to be more powerful Floodthorns. Like this deck archetype is only going to get better and better. And it's so powerful because one, the Emerald allows you to attack your opponent's hand through the discard, and the Steel simultaneously allows you to attack their board state with your Steel Song based removal. So you just have a really powerful 2-pronged attack to contain the board while simultaneously attacking the hand. And yeah, very strong deck. Definitely contender for best deck in the format right now.
And we're seeing that in tournament results. Although, in Chicago, it wasn't the most represented deck in the top 64. It was second most, only to Ruby Sapphire. So other decks still able to play and compete, but for sure, it definitely it's made an impression, let's say, on the competitive scene.
It's the nut draw potential of the deck is just unparalleled, and having quote unquote free wins in a tournament is very compelling.
Let's see if we manage to do it again here. The one thing I will say against this deck is removing, we talked about how Diablo does compensate for the weakness of this deck in that it puts pressure on your own hand to accomplish this combo. But other cards do have options. Brawl, for example. So removing that Diablo like immediately upon its play, even if it gets a discard off Bucky, kind of slows this deck down quite a bit. And so Brawl is a card, for example, that is available to deal with Diablo. And so there are some answers if you can draw into them at the right time.
That's a great point, Liam. I think the question is like, what does Ruby Amethyst need to be doing to kind of, put themselves in a position to win these games? And I think, obviously immediately addressing the Diablo with whatever means they can is definitely priority number one. Priority number two is just continue to draw cards. Potentially don't even play a character for the turn if it doesn't replace itself, and just ink it so you can continue to have cards in your hand, so you can continue to make your inkwell drops and get to that be prepared is another potential strategy you have. But it is definitely tough.
No, I agree. And speaking of tough, this is a really tough opening from Blue and Hisyn here. Not only are we shifting Diablo, so not only do we have Bucky, but we shifted the Diablo. Diablo then immediately sang Let the Storm Rage On, dealing 2 damage and drawing Blue a card, replacing that card replacing itself. And we do see another Diablo available in Blue's hand. So even if Hisyn removes this one, just as we saw last game, another Diablo right on its heels, flocking to Blue's side of the board to help him with that card draw problem he may run into. Hisyn kind of thinking this through, I think a Brawl would be a great play if he had it here, but thinking through what his options are, kind of finding himself in the same scenarios it did last game with knowing he needs to ink to build his way up to those endgame removal options that he has, and at the same time trying to find ways to deal with his board state. There's the Brawl that we talked about, though.
There you go. I didn't see the Brawl in his hand, and I was thinking to myself, if you don't have it, you can definitely start the turn by questing with the turn box followers to draw a card and see if you can draw it. But with the Brawl readily in his hand, that's a great way to stifle Blue's development.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, we do see the other Diablo there, but playing it when it's not shifted, it'll take a turn to set up the card draw. So it's coming back, but not as bad for another turn or two.
We'll point out as well, this is only a single Bucky draw from Blue. Oh, well, I went and jinxed it.
You did. I missed it, but it may have been a Bucky top deck there. But this is starting to feel eerily familiar. We saw this same combination play out in the previous game to devastating effect. So couple Floodborn there available. The one saving grace here for Hisyn is that, as you pointed out last game, Blue is kind of running through his hand. So with another ink and another character played, we'll be down to 2 cards after the draw this turn. And so kind of a chance for Hisyn to do some work. But the castle here, I mean, what do you think about this play, Aaron? Because this is a card, to me, that Blue will have a hard time responding to for a little while. So even if, we don't get some card draw off of it, it's going to build up probably 4 or 6 lore before it's removed from the board.
Yeah, it's definitely, force Blue to change his game plan a bit, because I believe, he was, he could have played Diablo on 3 last turn. He elected to play a second Bucky, and he was kind of just taking his time, controlling, taking a very slow pace of the game and attacking Hisyn's hand. Now with the castle in play, look at that. We even see him attacking with his Buckies. So now if Hisyn's able to draw something like a Maui to immediately challenge one of the Buckies, like that's a potentially a way back into this game, is just putting a little bit of pressure on Blue to expose his characters.
Well, and then we see, so as you suggested, taking a few turns off here from questing to deal with that, exposing the Buckies to danger. Didn't matter in this instance, but using the Buckies there to take down the Queen's Castle. And Hisyn drawing into another Queen's Castle before choosing not to play it, instead to send it to the Inkwell. Again, I think we're in that same scenario where last game, where we're playing towards that be prepared, kind of saving grace to clear the board now. Blue, just questing out with all of his characters. And of course, we have Diablo exerted now, allowing Blue to draw an extra card during Hisyn's turn. Hisyn drawing something not helpful, sending it to the Inkwell, knowing it's exposed to discard with the Buckies. And here we are. I feel like this is game 1 all over again.
It really is. Blue's just got the dream set up. Hisyn's had 0 cards in hand, playing off the top deck. Blue's essentially drawing 2 cards a turn, one on his turn and one on Hisyn's turn, and he can kind of just slowly present his threats as to not get blown out by Be Prepareds.
Yeah, and it's just a tough spot to be in. We do see the Sisu come down to add insult to injury. There goes the Sisu with and then along came Zeus. Just not going to allow Hisyn any chance to get back into this game, remove any of his characters. I think that was another Chernobog's followers into the Inkwell there, a card that's not going to benefit him much. So it'll become Ink. And again, we're top decking for the Be Prepared. We don't get it. We get a Snake. That's game.
And there's the handshake. Blue is going to take this match down 2-0. Just a masterclass of Bucky Diablo action right there.
It really is. This deck is difficult to beat, but when it gets its perfect opening draw of the Diablo into the Bucky, followed by a Diablo shift, or in the worst case, perhaps a double Bucky into just a sea of Floodborn, it's just really hard to come back from.
Yeah, and the deck is just, and you see Blue with a little bit of a pop off right there with a couple of fist bumps, celebrating his victory. But yes, the deck is incredibly consistent, and I've spent a lot of time just running calculations on consistencies of decks and stuff. And if you are looking only for a Bucky, and so if you draw 7 cards and none of them are Buckies, so you will mulligan all 7 cards. Statistically, over 14 cards, you're about 66% to find a Bucky in your opening hand.
Wow.
So about 2/3 of your game, you're going to have the Bucky. But you also have that 66% for the Diablo too. So I'm not sure what the combined percent of having at least one of them is, but it's very high. So the deck is very consistent.
And really plays right into the benefit Lorcana's mulligan system gives you. It's the ability to set up combos and to find key cards for particularly for key openings in your first few turns, and us seeing that play out here. And to your point, making it statistically, giving you statistically a very good chance to hit these opening combos in this game.
Yeah. So the mulligan in Lorcana is, in my opinion, the most powerful mulligan I've seen any card game provide, and it really allows both players to very consistently hit their primary game plan, which I think is a great thing because you can really, it really reduces the number of non-games in terms of one player did their thing, but the other person didn't. Both players, most of the time, are going to be doing the optimal thing that they're trying to do, which will lead to very exciting gameplay.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Well, Blue is moving on to the top 4. Hisyn with a fantastic performance today, finishing 3-2 during Swiss. Unfortunately, losing in the top 8. We're going to go talk to these players, perhaps bring you a player interview, and we'll be back here very, very shortly with the top 4. So don't go anywhere. We'll see who will be in the semifinals. And once again, thank you all for watching. We'll see you all in a bit.